All right, welcome everyone to Talk Openly. So good to be back again. My name is Jack, and this is my excellent friend Daniel. And we are students of Lama Jinpa's at Lions Road Dharma Center in Sacramento. For those who may be newly joining us, I just like to, I think we should mention that every once in a while and realized
Yeah,
I haven't
for
in a
sure.
while. So
Yeah. No, I'm glad you did. Hello, fellow
yeah,
students. Hi,
hi,
Jack.
hi. Well, as some of you may have seen in the text message going out, tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about the importance of not losing bodhicitta in the midst of crisis and people doing awful things, which I know some people are, really feeling that right now. We're in really difficult times. And our our world is in an unstable place.
That's putting
So
it mildly.
putting it mildly. Yeah. um and I'm not sure how much we're going to get into politics tonight. I don't think that's necessary actually to talk about bodhicitta, but it might come up.
Yeah, all right, all right.
Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. It's certainly something that I've been needing to review. So I'm glad we're going to talk about it, Daniel.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's practical at all levels, whether
Yes.
you're talking about geopolitics or intrapersonal issues or interpersonal issues. It's good.
Right.
It's good at all levels.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because I was just thinking this morning. So I got off the bus at the ferry and everyone's loading off the bus and the bus driver's saying bye to everyone. And I go and say like bye to him and he doesn't say bye. And I was like, starting to think like,
Aw,
oh, what's happening? Oh no, like,
Jack.
and then I've
Aw.
got like, you start to think like all the spirally things like
Yeah.
did I do something recently,
Yeah.
or does he not like that I look like a boy but have like
Hey,
I don't
right?
know, lady voice or
Yeah.
something. So it shook me up a little bit, but only briefly. And then I reminded myself, this really doesn't matter at all.
Right. Right.
But yes, that is a moment where you could easily kind of spin out and lose bodhicitta, be like, that guy's just a jerk.
Yeah, it's true, but it's always fun to have an opportunity to sort of look in the mirror and see what's going on with ourselves too, right? Like
Yeah.
in those instances, like it's sort of like we've said it, I know we talked about it before, but like it's like this, to me, it feels like those, like when those are like these golden opportunities to sort of like throw flour on a ghost or something, and now you see its form, right? You're like, oh,
Oh,
there I am. There's my my pettiness and my insecurity and all my fears and doubts and judgments.
that's a really great image.
Yeah.
Throwing flour on a ghost. That's so good.
Isn't
Yeah.
it? You know what I mean, though, right? Like
Hmm.
you have this. On the one hand, you could totally just get all wrapped up in your head and allow it to, like, have a negative impact on a long part of your day and influence your interactions with other beings and all
Yeah.
of that. It can just keep going if you get attached to it, right?
Yeah.
But then there's this sort of like, it's playful. It's kind of fun. Like it's like catching yourself. You're like, aha! I found you, you scoundrel. And
Yeah.
then like on Scooby-Doo or whatever, you like rip off the mask and it's like, it was
Yeah.
me all
All
along.
along. Yeah. Yeah, that is so great. And it has become, like, I think over the years of doing, training and learning Dharma, it has become more funny like that.
Yeah.
Like, I think, at first I used to be really hard on myself when I would notice things like that, or I'd be really embarrassed, like just
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, I don't like that. And
Right.
that still sometimes happens
I
at
still
different.
don't like it.
Yeah.
And there's times where I'm like very uncomfortable with that.
Certain ones, I'm very uncomfortable when I notice that I'm feeling jealous,
Yeah.
which I know we talked about, jealousy last week. That one, like we were talking about, it just feels like so icky.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, ones where I'm kind of like just a little bit absurd, like that this morning, where it was like, Oh, you just want people to pay attention to you and like, recognize you. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't need that.
You can even sort of pat yourself on the head and be like, I see you, Jack.
Yeah,
You're good enough. You're smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like you.
that's right. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm gonna carry that one around with me. So how are you doing, buddy? What's new in your world?
I'm pretty good. Things are settling down. It's still a little bit chaotic, ever changing. It's all of the different levels of the world are in disarray and change and all of that. And my own personal life situation is no different. But it's good. Different opportunities to practice, which is interesting. It's like switching sports or something. Like where some of the skills or some of the things that you've sort of maybe been working on, it feels a little different. Like, I don't know, you change to a different machine at the gym or something, right? Like it feels
You're
like
still
that.
working
Like,
out, but yeah,
yeah,
different.
like I'm still training. The training is a little bit different because it's a different gym, and the equipment's a little different because my life situation is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. And what has your training looked like?
Um, Well, it looks like a lot of shamatha meditation and not a whole lot else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically back to basics for me.
I
And
love the
just,
basics.
yeah, there's
Basics.
definitely nothing wrong with it. I have like, the experiences are quite different, especially my early morning, like 4 a.m. meditations or whatever. Like it's interesting to see how the stillness of like the night or the early morning like that, how it impacts my meditation.
Mhm.
It's helpful, actually. I can kind of see why some yogis like to practice in the middle of the night or
Yeah.
do their meditations in the middle of the night. It's sort of like, it's so much less distracting. There's so much less going on that you're already sort of starting in a calm state. And at least for me, like I'm oftentimes still a little bit sleepy or something, but I'm not like asleep, like I've been sort of woken up just enough that I'm like, I can kind of like guide, like gently ease my way into the meditation. And so instead of like having to calm things down, sometimes I have to sort of awaken things up a little
Yeah.
bit. But so it's mostly just meditation. And even there, I am finding I'm struggling a little bit with, I'd love to have consistency in terms of like where I meditate, but the time dictates where I meditate. So
Mm.
like if I'm early morning, then I meditate in the front room. Sometimes I meditate outside. Other times I go into a bedroom and meditate. And I don't really, I kind of would prefer a little bit more consistency,
Yeah.
in
Like
terms of like,
an altar space, you mean?
yeah, I miss that. I miss having that. I've gotten some good suggestions about making like portable altars and that kind of thing. So
Cool.
I might take up some of those suggestions. But like I said, things are settling down, and it's working out. It's fine. I'll get
Yeah.
there.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been here before, Jack.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's not unfamiliar territory. It's just sort of like, oh, all right, that's something new. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is how it is right now.
This is how it is right now. It won't
Yeah.
be like this forever.
And let me examine the whole landscape of right now, rather than
Uh,
trying to be in a different place.
That's right, right. Exactly that. Yeah. I'm having a lot more. It's interesting because, right now I moved in with my girlfriend, and there's a lot more interpersonal interaction,
Yeah.
right, between myself and her, and her kids and the dogs and family and neighbors and all kinds of stuff, right? Which is kind of cool because I was a bit of a hermit before. So it was, like life was pretty easy. I was just me and what was in my head.
Right. And so now there's all these dynamics that can come in and ruffle things up. Keep
Yeah, I
your
love
feathers
it. I
ruffled.
love it. I'm not
Yeah.
complaining whatsoever. I'm ready
Oh,
for it. It's great.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sounds, yeah, just like such, I mean, this is life and how it shifts for us and creates new opportunities to practice. And we're not like, I mean, we talk about this a lot, we're not monastics, and we're not cave yogis. We're householder yogis, where we get to practice with the whole dynamic
Right.
world that's really complicated, and that can be so distracting, yet when we can really engage with it, it's man, it is it challenges the ego, which is what we're doing, what we're
Right.
trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like a mini cave yogi. Like,
Yeah, you were.
you, you know, and I've come out of my cave, and there's a part of me that's like, this is scary. let me
Yeah.
let me go back in there. No, I'm just kidding. For the most part, I'm just like, I'm excited. I love it. I think the opportunities for practice and engagement and being there for other people is marvelous. So
That's great.
yeah, it's all good
Yay,
stuff.
fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. What
Um,
about you, Jack? Come on, talk to us about
yeah,
you.
well, first I wanted to ask, I'm just
Oh,
curious, because so you sit at 4 in the morning. Can I ask, how much sleep do you get? Like, do you get 6 hours? Do you get 8?
yeah. I would say I usually, so this, it's not every morning I wake up at 4, it's every other.
Okay.
So I just want to be honest about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, I'd say I usually, on those days, I'm usually getting maybe like 6.5 hours of sleep, maybe.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But you know, I'm a cheater. So yeah, I like, whenever I play video games, I always look for the cheat codes first.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, like, I'm not going to play a game without them. So my cheat code is a power nap in the afternoon.
There you go. Okay,
And
cool.
so even, I mean, like, even in like 6 minutes will do it. Like,
Nice.
it could just be like, I like to go for like 20 minutes or so, but it doesn't, I can go for very little sleep at night if I can get just one power nap.
Great. Yeah, good to know, because I am, I'm always kind of examining, where I'm at energy wise in my meditation. And it really fluctuates for me. Like, sometimes I'll get 6 hours of sleep and be like so energized.
That's
It's
right.
kind of bizarre. And
Yep.
and then I'll get 7 and be kind of groggy, or 8.
Yeah.
I feel like 9 or 10 and my body's really happy, but that's just not realistic for how much I have to do. Um,
Yeah. You know
so
what's
I'm
fun?
figuring
It's
it out.
fun to, sorry, Jack, but I was just thinking, like, it's fun to like think about it like in terms of similar to food, that we have like what we've been accustomed to. There's what society tells us, you know, kind of what we've been told or led to believe. And then there's a sort of the truth of the matter, which can be sort of found by playing with it a bit. It's a lot like fasting. Right. So what you're saying, what you said, is exactly the same experience. Sometimes, like, you're fasting and you're surprised. You're like, oh my gosh, I have so much energy and I'm not even hungry and
Right.
I can go, go, go. And my mind is so clear and this is amazing. Right. And other times you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I haven't eaten. This is terrible. I need something. Right. And,
Totally.
and I
Yeah.
think it's the
There's no
same thing.
fix.
No,
Yeah.
no. And it's the same kind of thing with sleeping, where it's like, it's not a prescribed thing, right? Like, you need what you need. But I think oftentimes we need less than we imagine we do.
For sure.
I'm not preaching that, by the way. That's just a suspicion.
Totally. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'll keep reporting back.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my training is also a lot of shamatha, and here and there I can get in a guru yoga practice, which is always great to practice with, like, Tara. I've been doing a lot of Tara practice, and yeah, I started doing that during when I had COVID a few weeks ago, and would do that like every other night, do a Tara practice. Um, and she's just so cool, right? Like, she's, this embodiment of compassion and compassionate action. And I love how her foot, her right foot is like reaching out to the earth,
Yeah.
ready to help. And so I really love her energy. And I also love like the kind of poems, the praise to 21 Taras in that practice, and all the different forms that she takes and that
Yeah.
compassion takes. I was surprised. I remember I was surprised when I first read through it, thinking, like, there's some kind of intense, like, wrathful side of Tara in the 21
Yeah.
Taras. Um, and so it's just really cool to imagine all of her different forms and the ways that compassion takes shape. So that's kind of like my visual practice. And then, yeah, shamatha, I've also been, yeah, doing it in the morning. Sometimes I wonder if evening is better for my mind, but maybe there's
Right.
not necessarily a better time. But it's interesting. When I wake up in the morning, it's like kind of no matter when I get up, my mind is already like kind of running towards work and just
Yeah.
thinking about what the day's going to look like. Um, and then evening times, it's like it's kind of settled down a little bit. And I know for some people that's completely the opposite. So,
Yeah.
and also
Yeah.
sometimes it's the opposite for me. So it really, again, there's just nothing that we can find that's permanent. There's nothing that's fixed. It's like we can't find any ground. It's just, like, okay, so what is it now? Like, what is it now? What is it
Right.
now?
Yeah.
And I still really haven't found a pattern, which is good because, yeah, ultimately there isn't an official pattern. So that's been good, and I'm consistent and uh excited to be at work, which I think is
Ooh,
really, really
nice.
huge, like just completely due to my training, right? There's 100% due to the Dharma that I can enjoy being at work right now. Um, yeah, I'm just showing up. That's really what I keep telling myself every day is like, just show up, just do it. Stop fighting it. Like,
Yeah.
just do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
Show up, do the best you can.
Yep,
Right. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
have some, conversations with people, remind them that they're good, like that's kind of my
Yeah.
job. Is like
Yeah.
just
Nice.
like, hey, you're good, you're good, we're good.
Yeah.
Like that's ultimately my job.
Aw.
And yeah. Um, so I feel happy. I think today was a good day. Despite all of the horror, right, in the world, it's like, oh yeah, I can have a good day.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about it is it's not black or white, and it's not all or nothing. It's all sort of blended together, right? The beauty and the suffering and the
Yeah.
happiness and the sadness. All of that is it's always there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that part of our job as bodhisattvas in training is to have our eyes open to it all,
Yeah.
and not rejecting or denying any of it. It would be just as much of a wrongdoing to reject the good as it would be to try and reject the bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to absorb all of it, to see it, witness it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Although I gotta say, from that absorption witnessing point of view, you know, for me personally, it's really important to come back to witnessing and being present with what is here now for me, because I have noticed that like overconsumption of news is somewhat problematic for my mind, right? It has a particular effect. Like I want to be aware of it. I want to know what's happening on the world stage and what's going on sort of globally. But at the same time, I think that there's especially in times like these, so much like propaganda and so much noise and so much clamoring for different things that it can be chaotic, confusing, scary, anxiety inducing, all kinds of stuff, right? And we had a whole show about just that, right? About how to relate to the news. But I am finding that it's better, like for me personally, like although I'm aware of what's going on, it's better for me to try to come back home and like be here, be in my body, be with the people who are close to like in here immediately,
Yeah.
right? And that feels safer somehow. It feels better.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think yeah, absorption is not necessarily the right word.
Yeah.
Um yeah, but I think one thing that I'm really learning too is that, a training in Buddhism is about having really good boundaries too. Like having really good boundaries because we want to remain as functional as we can be. Mama's been bringing that up recently in his talks is that, our training is for real life, and, we want to have a functional life so that we can continue doing, the training and practice, and working with others that is so inherent to a bodhisattva practice. So yeah,
Right.
we want to be functional. And so we have to look, okay, what shifts my functionality into dysfunction? And
Yeah,
if it's that kind of overconsumption, overabsorption of all the horror, we need to be aware of that. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Mm, good stuff.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to hear about. It makes me happy that you're happy, and you're, like the way that you describe both your training and your lived experience. It sounds super positive, and I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you, Jack.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, yeah. I'm trucking.
Nice, nice. You're an inspiration to the rest of us.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Well, should we do some mind training?
Let's do. Hey, I thought we already were.
I think so, but
Okay.
like official. Low jump.
Oh, you mean like Lojong slogans? Okay, I see what you're saying.
So Daniel's pulling up this random Lojong slogan generator, which is on the Alliance Roar Dharma Center website. And it has this wonderful random Lojong slogan button that he's going to press now. And here we go. We've got the slogan of the day. Number 37, don't turn gods into demons. Yes. So this slogan refers to our general tendency to dwell on pain and go through life with constant complaints. We should not make painful that which is inherently joyful.
Hmm.
There's a lot there. I think there's also like multiple interpretations, right? Because I feel like I've also heard an interpretation that was somewhat different, like that we can do a kind of like spiritual materialism, like twisting thing of the Dharma, to kind of turn it into like a yeah, just basically fulfilling our ego, right? That we can use spirituality for kind of egoistic aims. And so that's kind of, I've heard this slogan, be described in that way, that kind of like this godliness of Dharma could be turned into demon of ego. So I'm curious, what have you heard about this slogan, or what do you think about the quote here?
Well, I think I think both interpretations make sense. Certainly, I think that I've had enough experience doing the turning gods into demons, in the sense, at least in the sense that the context of what Chogyam Trungpa is saying here, that it is actually, it's sort of like we were talking about last week with regard to jealousy, about how these habitual patterns and ways of thinking about things can become sort of like pervasive in our lives and consistent, so that it's almost like a filter with which we go through life. And so this idea of like really like when there is pain, and of course there's going to be pain, but when there is pain, dwelling with it, staying with it, hanging on, becoming attached to it, identifying with it, all of that is not quite the right thing, right? Like we've talked a lot about what we can do with those experiences, about using them as mind training, as opportunities for mind training, so that we can turn poison into medicine, right? So, but the tendency is quite the opposite, right? Sometimes we just stick with the poison and just drink it in, and I think that that's sort of what this is getting to. And yeah, excellent advice. I know we've talked about it in the past, but I think it bears repeating.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like we've also talked about, what you were saying, that these strong emotions that do come over us, sometimes in response to something, and sometimes it's just random, right? That we could actually experience them, without this kind of compulsive, just following our habitual patterns. So if we could just experience those feelings and not make them this kind of, imagine that they're permanent, then maybe they're actually in some ways joyful. He's saying here,
Yeah.
that which is inherently joyful, that, this life that is full of ups and downs, even the downs and even the ups, right? This kind
Yeah.
of, complicated existence that, we can experience joy within it, as long, like, we just can't get caught, which we will get caught, but, yeah.
Totally. Well, it's sort of like what we were talking about earlier, right? That the good and the bad, it really can't be so separated, right? And there's a lot to be grateful for. There's a whole lot of reason for joy, happiness. But we do sort of tend to like it's not as salient, right? It's not as it doesn't have
Yeah,
the same sort of juice to it as
right.
the pain and suffering and despair and
Yeah.
all of that. So it's almost like there's like an attraction to that, right? And
Yeah,
it kind of makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, I think.
right. That
Why
negativity bias
that's
thing.
right, the
Yeah,
negativity bias,
yeah.
right, exactly that. It doesn't have to be all bad all the time, and one of the things that I have to caution myself, and I know that I've talked to my kids about it and stuff, is this tendency, you ever notice like you have a bad interaction, let's just say first thing in the day, right? Something happens. It might be with like another person, like what you were talking about, or somebody doesn't say hi to you or bye to you or whatever, or maybe you get in the shower and you thought it was going to be hot but it's cold, or who knows, something happens. And it's interesting, isn't it, how like sometimes if something like that happens, we can be like, we can imagine like, oh, my whole day is screwed now, right?
Yeah.
Like this is gonna, it's gonna be one of those days, isn't it? Right? And we just like immediately cloud up our entire sort of the future of that day based upon one little event that's just nonsense. It's just a happening, right? Like whatever it wasn't that big of a deal. But
Yeah.
we're kind of like have you ever noticed that? I don't know if you do that or not, but I
Oh
know
yeah. Oh
where
yeah.
you're just like, oh, this whole day is just shot. This is no good.
Right. Yeah, we're very creative.
Mm-hmm.
We're very, very creative. We can just weave a whole web of lies.
That's right. That's right. Who do we have here? Goddess Uma is on the picture. She's beautiful.
Lovely.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
definitely check out the this website and the Lojong slogan generator, because there's a bunch of art that's so cool that I definitely wouldn't have seen otherwise, and
Same.
I recommend
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Well, my friend,
Yes, my friend.
has there been any time recently that you've felt like you're at risk of losing your bodhicitta?
Um, yeah, it's kind of weird though, like the way that it shows up for me. I feel it oftentimes in sort of, I was thinking about this, about how sometimes it shows up in really small, mundane ways, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of easy to think about it. Okay, so like I spend a lot of time sort of like practicing or thinking about it in relationship with my loved ones, my family, my community, sometimes with the world at large, right? I might do Tonglen for some high-ranking political official or something like
Yeah.
that, right? And it's kind of it's rather easy to focus there. But the thing that I notice is how the loss actually can happen for me anyway. My experiences in this like day-to-day kind of stuff where there's like almost like a slight like judgment, let's say. So let's say like I'm driving and I pull up to a stoplight behind somebody else, and they roll down their window and they throw out their garbage, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to not get like all kinds of feelings of
Yeah.
indignance, like I'm indignant and I'm like, who did
Like,
they
what
think they,
the
yeah,
hell?
exactly. And actually that will cause that kind of stuff, really ordinary old normal sort of irritations or whatever,
Yeah.
that will agitate me in ways that oftentimes, the typical agitators will not,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
where I'm sort of like, I'm sort of like aware of the fact that people really close to me are going to, you know, make me feel reactive or whatever, right? That I'm gonna like, that gotta be on the lookout. But sometimes it catches me off guard in the weirdest sort of places. I don't know how to describe it. It's like with irritations, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, for
just
sure.
where people aren't conforming to societal norms and that kind of thing, right?
That
Like
pisses me off too.
yeah, exactly. And that's where I sort of notice it the most, and where where I not notice it the most, but that is interesting to me, that I feel it the most. I sense it, like where I get most perturbed and sort of lose that feeling, you know, and what happens sometimes is I'm kind of aware of it. Like I'll be going along and I'm all in a happy, peace loving kind of Zen state or something like that, you know, and then somebody will sort of like provoke this feeling of it, whatever, indignation or something like that, and then I get like I'll sort of be aware that I think to myself, I'm like, them too, you know, like I need to, like there's a part of me that just doesn't want to extend you know, any type of consideration or loving kindness. I don't want to do compassion practices for them. Like there's some kind of like harsh judgment that comes in there. It's pretty yucky. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's that is really interesting that it's like people in my direct vicinity who are doing things in a way that don't conform to how I think other people should behave. And it doesn't have to be at all like some big horrific thing, like, you know, a terrorist attack or a hospital being bombed, right? You know, like
No.
it, far from that. It's like things like there's this woman on the bus and on the ferry where she'll like do the best that she can to get in front of people. Like she'll do this like little jog to get in front of like 3 people, and
Yeah.
it's like, you're still gonna sit on the ferry, like you're not getting anywhere. Like,
No.
why are you doing this, you know? Like I'll just get so annoyed, and it's like, why do I care what
Yeah.
this person's doing? Yeah, and it's just so funny how that works. And you know, maybe we could rewind a little bit and talk about first, like what exactly is bodhicitta? You know, what does bodhicitta mean, and why should we be fearful of losing it, you know? So as far as I know, and this is kind of like um my words, is that, from the teachings that I've received, is like bodhicitta is kind of like the willingness and the eagerness to recognize each other's Buddha nature, and to work to bring it out of one another, and to just believe and firmly that all of us are capable of uncovering all of the beauties of our Buddha nature. And so to live with that as your motivator, and the way that you see the world completely transforms, how you see others. So maintaining that mindset is just crucial, I think, getting by in the world in general, right? Like,
Right.
and being okay, like to have this belief really makes life livable, and the world workable.
Yeah.
Otherwise
Yeah.
it's just like a freaking annoying, awful place,
Yeah.
But yeah, what's kind of your interpretation of bodhicitta, or what have you learned?
That, I think that what you said was just absolutely gorgeous. That was beautiful. That was yeah. No, I was thinking like, well, what else would I say? Oh, it's the mind of enlightenment, this
Yeah,
aspiration for
yeah.
all beings.
Yeah,
But
that we love all
yeah,
beings. They're just like, oh my gosh, look at you, you're a Buddha too. Wow.
yeah. That's the hard part, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting. I was with I went on Saturday to this talk about the 8 verses of mind training with Geshe Tenge. Did you
Yeah.
go to that, Jack?
I wasn't able to go to it, no.
Oh, it was really It was really good. And at one point, I just thought it was interesting. He was talking about the value of other beings, of other people. And he said, here you respect Shakyamuni Buddha, right? You respect the Buddha and you honor, and you have a lot of like, you have a certain mindset towards him that's one of admiration and respect and all of that. And he said, and you value the Buddha, right? You value the Buddha in your life. So thing is that every being is that, right? Every single being is of equal value to the Buddha.
Yeah.
So, and it was, I know, like, that's not news to me in the, within the context of our teachings, but really like it kind of hit home. I was like, wow, like, right, that's what I'm striving to do, is to see that,
Yeah.
and like you said, what I really liked about what you said is to recognize it and seek to bring it out, right?
Yeah.
I think that's chef's
Yeah.
kiss.
Chef's kiss. um yeah, and I think that's like, it's scary, right? Because it forces us to acknowledge biases that we have, and to confront them. Like I have the really fortunate opportunity to work in mental health. That's it's just such a great stage for working on this stuff. So I feel really grateful. And one of the areas that I'd like to get into at some point, maybe volunteer, is working with folks in prison. And I, I have a lot of compassion for people who are incarcerated, largely because I feel that, the reason that they do a lot of the things that get them incarcerated are because of system failures and, lack of housing, food, shelter, mobility, all the things, right?
There
Um,
are causes and conditions.
there
There
are
are
causes
reasons
and conditions,
why. Yeah.
right? And then I think about people like who are in prison because of things like sex crimes or murder, and that's where my bodhicitta gets a little bit like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that, I should go straight to that first and start with the hardest first, right? Oftentimes, you should do the opposite. Start with people who you already, can feel some compassion for.
Sure.
But yeah, I feel like that's where I want to go, is like, I want to be able to see those people have Buddha nature within them too. And what
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
what's happened over lifetimes, and even within this life, to lead to that, those horrific acts. It's really fascinating to me, in fact.
Isn't it interesting that, we've heard stories about people who were the victims or family of victims of people who are in prison for, really terrible crimes, going and visiting with the perpetrator, with the offender, and actually creating relationships with them. And as they learn more about those causes and conditions, as they learn more about the individual and how it came to be that this whatever it was happened, compassion naturally arises, right? So that like if you were to spend time with just about anybody, right, and in fact maybe anybody at all, but you would get to learn a lot more and begin to see maybe some of yourself in them, and how I'm not suggesting necessarily that they're victims of the circumstances, but rather that it is really truly interdependent, and that this one particular individual cannot in any way, shape, or form be said to be 100% to blame for whatever transpires or transpired.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, what you said about, we start to see ourselves in other people. That's such a crucial point of this as well, is that, whenever I feel my feathers really ruffled by something, or I'm just like kind of devastated by world news and things like that. It's really important for me to pause and think about, you know, where where have I engaged in this kind of behavior, you know?
Sure.
And of course, I've never killed anyone, you know.
In
I
this life, you've never
in this
killed anyone.
life, exactly. In this life, I've never killed anyone. But in past lives, I have. In this life, I've never assaulted someone, right? But in previous lives, I have. And what ways have I kind of done those things in this life? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like I have, like I've killed animals, I've killed
yeah,
bugs.
yeah.
I've engaged in sexual conduct that was, you know, yeah, probably harmful or uncomfortable. These are things that, yeah, we can't put this kind of separation between ourselves and other people, because it's like, oh,
Mm-mm.
I see the seed of that in me.
Oh yeah.
Sure,
That's
it's
see,
there.
I think that's why I don't like those the little ones. That's why like,
Oh, good point. Yeah.
I really don't like it. And because when somebody does something that, is one of those minor irritations or whatever, I really don't want to have that reflection where I recognize if I spend 10 seconds thinking about it, looking at it, I see, of course I've done that
Yeah.
or have done something similar for the same reasons, right? Like, come on, it's just their turn to do it, and you did it in the past, and you
Yeah.
wish people would just understand that, or whatever, it was a little mistake, or
Right, right. Well, and that I like that you said, you know, those little ones are really, we should be concerned with that, right? Because,
oh
you know,
yeah,
the tiniest seed can grow into a huge oak tree, right? And
absolutely.
so,
I'm telling you, Jack, I honestly think that it might in some sense be easier for me to extend compassion and have a really loving, kind attitude towards a violent convicted felon who's done all kinds of awful things than I can to the person who's rolling coal and throwing garbage out their window,
isn't that bizarre?
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so interesting. And I maybe part of that is because who's at the center of like receiving the harm, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know, if someone who's in prison for, you know, murdering someone or whatever, uh, we can have compassion for them. We can have understanding, you know, how did
yeah.
it lead there? But we're not directly involved in who was
Oh, that's
harmed,
a
right?
great point, Jack. Yeah, I think you're actually right about that. The further removed they are from
Yeah.
me, the easier it is to be like, well, I kind of see and I understand and okay,
Yeah.
right? But
But
if
if it was
what?
your family member, right?
Oh, good point. Good point.
Yeah.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so like same as, you know, kind of the, yeah, geopolitics and whatnot, like um I can see the seeds and the, you know, the politics and whatnot that have led to the type of attacks, you know, that have happened. But how scary it would be if that was happening right here. I wouldn't
Hmm.
be thinking, I hope that I would be thinking about that if it did happen here. Um, but as of right now, it's like, okay, it's distant. I can reflect on it, right?
Yeah.
I have time and space and energy for Tonglen. But if it was happening here, if my hospital that I work at had been bombed, you know, and half of the people I work with are dead, you know, how easy would it be for me to uh spare some Tonglen for the people who had done that, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I hope so. You know, I think that's what we're training for, right? We're training for
Yeah.
real life. We're training for the chaos of life to be able to meet it with love and
Yeah.
bodhicitta.
There's this interesting, you reminded me of this story that I heard some time ago about a Tibetan monk who had been thrown into a Chinese prison
Mhm.
and had for like decades, I guess, and there was all kinds of torture
Sure,
and
yeah.
abuse and stuff like that. And when he came out, somebody had asked him about his experiences, and he said, well, it was really, really bad. Like, it was really bad because for a moment, I almost lost my bodhicitta for the guards, right? I came close with the guards that were beating us and, whatever, taking whatever, that, not a good relationship. And I almost lost it. And you could just imagine, man, like how you would feel yourself if you were in prison and you had guards that were abusing you or torturing you or whatever, and you were there unjustly. How easy it would be to fall into the trap of hatred and, and me versus them, and like they are bad and poor me, all of that.
Yeah. Gives me chills, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, to imagine that much that kind of mind, that
Right.
strength of mind, that is power right there.
Think about how much, yeah. I mean, like, so so he was an old monk when he got out, but he had before he went in, he'd spent a lot of time doing mind training, right? So all of this training is really important. We do it when we can, so that when those moments happen, whatever, thing happens that we might sort of lose it if we weren't, more practiced. That's what all this training is about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? It's for when it really matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I imagine, he was training in that, recognition of those guards, having Buddha nature and seeing, that, gosh, this is, the way that you're acting is it's because of causes and conditions. You've been
Right.
conditioned to see that this is the way that I should be treated. It's not you. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting too how recognizing ourselves and our similarity, or I think what's usually termed equalizing self and other within Tibetan Buddhism. I think it's interesting how when you sort of recognize that actually one thing that we all share in common, regardless of who we are and how we behave, is this deep desire for satisfaction and to avoid stress, right? To be happy and to avoid suffering, that actually we all share that. And that's what we all want deep down inside. And what I'm saying is, like, what's interesting is that when you actually dwell on that and you contemplate that and you see a person who's behaving in an unloving manner or in a harmful manner, and you really stop to think and you say, that person right now, with whatever they're doing, are trying to avoid suffering and they're trying to be happy.
Right.
And the reason why they're creating suffering or why it's not working out like it in a good way is because of these obscurations, because of their ignorance, because of their attachment, because of their aversion. And that too, I share with them, right? So the only thing is really different here really is the causes, the sort of the life situation, the causes and conditions, the opportunities, right, and how they present. But I too have those same afflictions. I have the same desires and I have the same afflictions. They just present differently.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so all of our brothers and sisters and non-binary-ers, in the world, like we're just, it makes me kind of tear up, right? Because it's like, we have all of these ways that we separate ourselves from one another. Our tribalism and our racism and genderism, all the things, like the ways that we can put ourselves into camps, and yet we just want to be happy. That's it. We just want to be happy. That's what it comes down to. And so, it kind of hurts sometimes to recognize that, because it's like, oh, it just sounds so simple, right? And it is that simple.
That recognition, though, notice the tearing up is the bodhicitta response. It is the recognition of the fundamental thing that we all share, the recognition of these obscurations that cause us to behave in ways that don't lead to what we're after. Like, that recognition itself gives rise to this compassionate these feelings that sort of like, it just takes all the wind out of it, right? When you really sit with it, like all the, the mental stuff where you're like judging them and getting angry at them and, wishing all kinds of bad things. I don't know, however the mind takes off when it does, when it gets it wrapped up in this stuff. When you really sit with it, all of a sudden you realize you're like, oh, and it kind of hurts a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's love,
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
love.
Like
Right.
I want you to be free from suffering. I really want you to be free
Right.
from suffering. I don't
Because
like that you're
if
not.
you were free of suffering, then all those people that you're harming would be freer of suffering, right?
Right.
Like what a
Right.
beautiful thing if only you, this person, were free of suffering.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so that bodhicitta and also our bodhisattva vow to not give up hope, basically, that we can do this, that we can affect one another, that we're not fixed, we're not just these kind of like just horrendous acting beings that just want to butcher one another. Like that is not our nature. It's not permanent. And Chayam Trungpa has this wonderful article that I recommend looking up called the Bodhisattva Vow, and the whole thing is quotable. But I found that I really loved this idea that the world around us is workable. He just describes that we have to decide that, and just believe the world around us is workable. It's not these kind of unmoving states.
Interesting that you bring this up. So the workable aspect of it also seems to point to something that I was hoping that we could talk about briefly, which is, in many cases, Buddhism and Buddhist practices are seen as passive, right?
Yeah.
And it's true that in many cases, what we're looking for in a situation is some calm and some clarity and some stability. But that's so that we can see what needs to be done,
Yes.
right? It's
Yes.
that's not the end goal, the calm, quiet, whatever demeanor. That's not the end goal. That's just so that we can calm things down and see what needs to happen, right? And that sometimes direct action is called for on our part in response to the behavior of other beings. I wanted to tell a story because I was, so I'm here at the cottage, and one of our Sangha members, Bill, I was talking to him just before I came in here. And he said, well, what's your talk show about tonight? And I told him, and I said, well, what advice, what do you have to say about that? Right? What do you got anything? And he had a few things to say, but then he said, I think the thing that really stands out to me is this example that was demonstrated to me by Lama Yeshe Jinpa. And it was where Bill was with Lama at the end of like a meditation session, and Lama's just like in his street clothes, whatever. He doesn't have his robes on or anything. And he actually, there was a lot of ruckus. He goes outside, turns out there's a street fight going on, people all bloodied up, and there's like multiple people, they're all fighting. And Lama says, Bill, come with me. And Bill thinks, well, he needs me to escort him to my car or something for safety. And instead, Lama heads straight out into the street, walks into the middle of the group of people who are fighting. Lama's like 70 years old, right? Somewhere around there, right? And this is like a group of people who already have been fighting, and they're all enraged, and they're like, it's about to go down even worse. Lama walks out into the street, into the middle of it, and just stands there quietly, right?
Yeah.
And diffuse the entire situation.
Wow.
Everybody left. It was over. Nobody got hurt further. But that's because he had presence of mind. He was there. He could see it clearly what was actually happening, right? And he was able to take direct action. But that direct action involved, not like he did something, but he didn't have to go in and say, you're wrong, you're bad, you shouldn't be doing this. Why don't you just love each other? Can't we all just get along?
Exactly. Right.
No, he didn't know. Literally just walks out and puts his own body in the middle of them all and stops the entire affair, right? Like that, to me, I was just like, yeah, Bill, right. That's it. That's the example of what we're talking about. There's all kinds of crazy shit going down, right? But when we have an opportunity to put ourselves in there, then if we've been diligent about our practice, about our training, and we're like really have this aspiration, you know, to be bodhisattvas, then we can do something. We can do something, and it can actually have an effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how intense the situation was. I had heard it, but I didn't realize yeah, how dangerous that could have been. And yet, you know, the presence to go in that with such calm, you know, is really moving. I mean, yeah, I just feel so much love, you know, for our
Right.
teacher.
Yeah, and what a
his wisdom.
What a great teaching.
What a great teaching. Yeah, and that you don't, to break up a conflict, you don't need to find who's right, quote unquote.
No.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
You don't need to find who's right or what happened even.
No,
You don't need
no.
to figure out any of it. You can just be there with presence.
Right.
With kind, compassionate, and wise presence.
Right. With deep, deep, active love,
yeah,
for
everyone.
all of the beings
yeah.
who are in that, who are there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Oh,
you know,
thank you, Bill, for that story.
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
I
hope Bill listens to this and he gets the credit he deserves, because I was like, when he said that, I was like, that is the most, I gotta bring that up. That's such a perfect example. And it's fresh. I think that we may have talked about it before, but like he told me this story again, and it's like I was just blown away again. I was like, holy moly, it's amazing, right? And so inspirational. You and I talk about nonviolent communication all the time, right? And but the problem is, in some situations, you know, you think nonviolent communication has to be done, has to be articulated, right? But that's like nonviolent communication on a whole other level, using body language and who knows what else, right? But not having to go in and say anything, because sometimes that'll cause more problems.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, well, Daniel, I can't believe the hour has already gone by.
No.
Right?
Crazy.
I really feel impacted by our conversation tonight. And buoyed, you know, like there's so many ways that this world could be weighing us down right now. And I really empathize with those of us who are feeling that way, you know. And we have this training, we have the Dharma, we have these teachers and teachings that want to give us the strength to be with it, and to sometimes, if need be, stand in the middle of it. So what a beautiful, beautiful conversation with you tonight, Daniel. I really, really appreciate it.
Me too, Jack. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks all for listening. We really love you all. You know, maybe we don't know every single one of you, but I'm so glad that you're here, and I look forward to next week.
Take care, Jack. Thank you so much.
You too, Daniel. Bye.
Bye-bye.